Welcome to Shut Up and Sit. I'm Yedda Stansel, a consciousness coach and consultant. I'm on a mission to bring mindfulness to the modern world. Each week, we will offer ancient healing practices, real-world examples, and the latest research in neurobiology and behavior change into fun conversation that invites you to wake up your highest self. Now, let's go shut up and sit. All right. How is everybody? Oh man, it's so good to be back and talking with you all. And again, talking about some of the stuff I love. You guys know I love me some good cognitive soup. And that's really kind of what we're still in, is we're still talking about challenging some negative thoughts today. Now that you guys know from the last episode, what are the top 10 cognitive distortions? And I dare you to go out to dinner and drop those and be like, hey, I got a trivia question. Does anybody know the top 10 challenging or cognitive thoughts? And then you can challenge them a little bit. Actually, don't do that because they'll probably not go back to dinner with you. I would do that. And I have tried to do that with my friends. And they're like, yeah, can we talk about something fun and interesting? So this stuff is fun and interesting to me. And I think, again, this whole idea of negative thinking, it's not something that I think we need to kind of be taboo about. Like, I'm the kind of person, and my friends that know me and my clients that work with me know, I'm a truth seeker and a truth teller. And I just bring this shit and just lay it on the table. And I'm like, we got to talk about it. And so we're talking about it today, and we're going to be talking about it with one of my closest friends and clients, Chase Chewning. And Chase has been doing this work for a while. He's very well aware of but you could challenge him on the top 10 cognitive distortions. And he's very well aware of what it means to challenge those negative thoughts. Chase worked with me for many years as a client. He came to me, we used to work together years ago, and he came to me, he was a health coach at the time, working for a concierge medical company. And he said, I got this idea, but he was just in the system and there was all this negativity around him and he had grown up with it. But he had this idea to take his father's mantra, literally, that he had been raised with, which was called ever forward. And he had an idea to carry that out into the world. He wanted to empower people to live an ever forward life. And you're going to hear what that is in a minute. And so as he did this work with me, I asked him, when I wrote the book and finished this manual, I said, hey, would you mind giving me a testimonial? So his testimonial is in this part of the book. And so if you have a copy of it, you can read that in more detail. And he really was amazed at how this work of understanding the power of thoughts and shutting up and sitting down and marrying mindfulness with a lot of the science and the psychology and the biology and the neurobiology of health and his whole human being aspect, how powerful it was to change his life. So you're going to hear him talk a little bit about challenging those negative thoughts, really challenging his limiting beliefs in the book. If you have a copy of the workbook, there's 2 great, huge sections here where you actually can go in and do your own questions. I've given you questions to answer. You can fill those out and you can learn a little bit more about challenging those negative thoughts as you hear Chase and I talk. And then we're going to talk a little bit, Chase mentions this some, but we're going to talk about how to get unstuck. And when you're stuck in these negative cognitions and you're kind of on that downward spiral, the 3 things that you do, and this is what Chase learned to do, but you get out of the habit of struggle, which is really what the shut up and sit work teaches you to do. You build a new habit. You get out of the habit of low expectations. Actually, with mindfulness, you learn not to even create expectations anymore. And you learn how to favor hope over doubt. And that's what you're going to hear Chase talk about. He got out of the habit of the struggle. He got out of the habit of just accepting what was and the low expectations that he really had realized he was creating. And then he learned to hope for something different. And he picked up and moved from the East Coast here in Richmond, Virginia, and moved all the way out to LA. So actually on our episode today, if you're watching on video, you're going to hear Chase and I, we're in Manhattan Beach. We're sitting in one of the bougiest hotels. We're having a phenomenal time talking about this work, talking about his work, this vision to bring Shut Up and Sit to life, and having Ever Forward be a part of this. So as you guys are settling in and you're listening, I just want to introduce you to an incredible episode and experience. And yes, you too can be barefoot and bougie if you want in Manhattan Beach. Shut Up and Sit says you get to decide, how do you want to create your life? Where do you want to go with it? You get to decide that, nobody else. And so this work and this empowerment of listening to Chase, I hope it inspires you to think that hope is possible for you. You can get out of your low expectations. You can get out of the habit of struggling with all this shit inside of you that makes you feel like you're stuck. And I know that place. I've lived there. You wake up and you're like, I'm going to do this today. And then at 5, 6 o'clock, you're sitting on the couch and you're a whipped dog and you're like, I didn't do any damn thing I meant to do today. And there are stories, and there are people out there who have stories to tell you they did it. Chase is one of them. And I'm really excited because I know as you do this work, you're going to become one of them too. And maybe one day you'll be on the show with me talking about your shut up and sit journey. And until then, I want you just to shut up, sit down. If you're driving, obviously you're already sitting down. If you're hanging out somewhere and you're doing something, just enjoy the story, enjoy Chase. And I want to just introduce you to my very good friend, Chase Chewning. Here you go.
Live from Manhattan Beach. Actually, it's very, very unique timing. We're recording this, Yedda. Today went live my 400th episode on the podcast. And I was kind of getting in my feels, and I shared a story with the very first guest of Everforward Radio, Christian Guzman. We were sitting in my brother's kitchen 4 years ago, and I was using the microphone incorrectly. I barely even had my side turned on. I was waffling between, do I just ask questions? Do I just get the story? And now here we are 4 years and 400 episodes later. And that was one origin, but really the origin behind the origin is with you. And so it's kind of funny how the world keeps kind of coming back to these unique times.
I love it. I keep coming up with words like it's crazy, but it's how the universe works.
I believe it.
Right? I mean, and I was thinking about this when we ended up making this work for you and I to get together. I mean, it was like everything in the whole operation of the world. Yeah. There's an intelligence to it. And there's something that just connects everything, and it just, and we'll talk about this more, what we're going to lead into in the content today. But I mean, that's really what I think is so important about going further out into this conversation about presence and mindfulness, is it's not just about the and the, I just want to be like chill and zen. Like, you tap into some like serious power about going with the flow. Yeah. And I think about that for you and I, because I thought, okay, I remember, I think I was like, was it episode 4 that we did?
It was definitely the first like 5 or 7,
somewhere
maybe,
around there.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. I was like, okay, I was sitting in my home office at that other house. I'm in my new one now, but I go back. So for the listeners, I mean, you had been doing this work and you thought, okay, I want to start doing this. Yeah. It was just a couple episodes in, kind of tying into your story. And we're sitting in my home office and I'm in the middle of, kind of on the final earthquakes of a divorce and ending a 20-year marriage and getting ready to send my son off to college. And, he's wrapping up high school. And I'm like, learning all this and kind of doing this deep swan dive, actually I should say belly flop, into this just like, loss of self and kind of like this full-on collision course with my own ego. And so what I was learning, I was also teaching my clients, but I think about where we both were when you had just started Everforward, when I had just started pulling all this content together and had it in scraps of paper, literally in stacks around my office like a mad woman. I remember even referencing that. Yeah. And in that conversation, we talked about what we both had dreamed and aspired to do, where we thought we might go, what we might do. And I even told you, I was like, your whole focus should be in this vein right here, talking to people, podcast, your passion, your voice.
That's very true. It's very true.
And you were just, I mean, you had that little teeny chrome. Do you remember the microphone?
It was like this. It was $50. It was just rinky dink, tiny little thing. I just put in the middle of us, and I hoped that it worked. And actually, it's funny. I had someone recently find the show. They're like, oh my God, I'm new to the show. I just started listening I'm only in the first 10 episodes in. I was like, you can skip past those if you want.
I know, but what's so cool about that was there we both were. And if you had said then, so was that 4 or 5 years ago? What did you say?
Oh, we were recording. Yeah, that was 4 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm thinking is just, I mean, this is the power of this stuff. We were both doing the work and the content of the shut up and sit and the mindfulness and the behavior change and all the cool stuff we're going to, the power of thoughts. We were doing that, both of us, and I was teaching people how to do that, but we were not near as is deliberate and intentional. And we were just in this like kind of ideation, right? I mean, we both had dreams. Don't get me wrong. I know you really knew where you wanted to go. But if somebody had walked into that room while we were on that show, talking to each other like we are right now and said, hey, so just kind of, FYI, because you were still living on the East Coast.
I think at that time just moved up to DC from Richmond, Virginia.
You were still working for Partner MD.
I was still working full time as a clinical health coach.
Is that going to get edited out?
No, it's fine. Look, at this point, it's public knowledge. They can look at my LinkedIn. It's fine.
So what was really cool, though, I love is I sat and I reflected about that today before you got here, and I thought, man, we were sitting in my home office. I was talking about this concept, this theory of taking coaching way beyond, and I really don't even call it coaching anymore, but building into behavioral change and business and the bottom line, but tying in, I knew mindfulness had a play, because I literally believed we're not talking about teaching people how to pause, right? Or stop, interrupt, and then rewind, rewrite, and respond with new ways of showing up across the board. I mean, anything. And so you were a client. You were like, hey, teach me how to do that. But teach you how to do it in the sense that I also was in that question of like, but how do we manifest those dreams and desires? How do other people get there? What did they do? So here we're sitting in my office. You had this dream. I don't think either one of us would have ever believed somebody if they said, so Manhattan Beach, you're just going to be chilling out together, getting ready to watch the sunset in this beautiful,
it's pretty wild.
You live here. You live on the West Coast.
I wouldn't even say then I had a dream. I had something that I was occupying my time with. I didn't know what I was doing.
Here's the thing, and I think this is important for the listeners. You were not even able to articulate and say, I want to move to the West Coast and I want to have 400 episodes and I want to do this, this, and this. The power of the vision and the dream was enough to say, I just love what I'm doing and I want to do more of this.
Right, yeah.
And so we were both in that conversation, and I was in the same conversation. I just love this, what I'm learning. I love this integrative approach to development that was kind of built on the foundation that we both had as health coaches, but I knew there was more to it, the cognitive, the energy, the health, all of it. You and I could spend hours talking about that. But I didn't have an idea. I'd never thought I was going to write a book. Never. And so now sitting down and going, oh man, I'm sitting in Manhattan Beach in one of the most gorgeous boutique hotels with Chase on Ever Forward podcast, who just did episode 400
today.
And while I sit here, there's a crew of people printing the book, printing the things that we need, getting ready to film the video for and start my own podcast when I get back, build this whole business around teaching people the concept of how to shut up and sit and go within and do the work to bring their best selves out into the world. I mean, I would have been like, it's not possible. And because I thought it was cool. I loved what I was doing. You loved what you were doing. So I think there's just power in that to just remind people that you don't have to know how to do it all at once. But I do, man, I love looking back in the rearview mirror and going, whoa.
Which I'm sure a lot of people are doing right now as we're wrapping up 2020. So many people are ready to just kind of get the rear view over with. And it's funny you say that, because I was walking and thinking yesterday, like I often do. My form of meditation is walking. Yeah. I go for just long walks.
That's another version of shut up and sit. You don't have to be like in the lotus position on your surfboard, like perfect,
it's
waiting for the universe to, right? No, it's just shut up and sit down and go in here. And it can be in multiple ways. So I love that yours is walking.
And that always gets me to new ideas. It gets me to think about things that I need to think about that are now I'm full of or I have less distractions. Also, it gets me to think in just new ways. I have the most random thoughts come into my mind and into my heart when I am just in nature, alone, out walking, and just allowing the process to happen instead of me seeking it out. And that was one of the most, I think, easy ways to summarize our initial work together. It was just the option of different ways to think. Different ways to think about what you want out of life, different ways to think about your personal life, your profession, of what you are capable of doing. And the work that we did together was so fascinating because I could see our clients, our patients, our mutual work together, how it was transforming their lives. And purely that was meant to be kind of like this weight loss wellness program. What we were seeing and kind of knew, it was so much more than that. It was what's going on up here and what's driving down here, the head and the heart, that is opening up doors and possibilities for people beyond just the 20 pounds or beyond just gaining muscle. It was just incredible. And that's really how I would summarize these 400 episodes, these 4 years, is just when I change the way that I think, or even when I challenge the way that I think, when I think it's right, especially when I think there's room for growth, just it opens up infinite possibilities.
Yeah. And that's a perfect lead in, because obviously, as you know, chapter 2 in the book, which you are the testimonial, you're the client in this chapter, is titled The Link is What You Think.
Yeah.
And so, there's this thing, and in our coaching, we talked about it, but, also the reason why I ended up writing the book was because I realized I was doing the same thing in the same way, with an individual tweak, obviously, with each client, but my coaching was evolving, and I was starting to realize, so why is it that some people do reach success or do gain whatever their dreams or goals or visions are, and some don't? And as you know, as you just elaborated on, we both have been in the health and wellness industry as our first career. Now we're in our second career, which is totally just blows the doors off of calories in, calories out. But what I tell people now is my first career really was a phenomenal education in behavior.
Yes.
And same for you. And so as I started digging deeper into that, I started going, so why does it not work for some people? And then what I realized through my own kind of awakening was, well, why am I doing some of the things that I do? And so, of course, as you could imagine, a 20-year marriage, raising a son, having him get ready to finish high school, start his own life, I was really just kind of faced with some of my own decisions and going, why do I do some of the things I do? Why don't I do some of the things that I want to do? And what I realized was it really does. It's all about our belief system. And you know this, we work
100%,
together.
Yeah.
You get what you believe, but I still don't hear people talking about the belief system in the same conversation as behavior. And I'm not a big fan of behavior change, but if there is something in your life that's not working and there's a habit there that you do need to modify, we have to talk about how are we going to change that? How are we going to interrupt the pattern? And so, I'm not kidding. In the beginning introduction of the book, I talk about this. I've read now probably over 600 books on this. And I was in this kind of mad woman.
I think you have 500 of them in your home office.
Yeah. Well, in the new home office too. And so I was just kind of down this rabbit hole. And so the entry point for me with it was, and I had just gotten certified as a narrative coach when we started working together and moved kind of out of the wellness space. And I thought, wait a minute, the narrative is so important. What am I telling myself? That's what I'm telling the world. And the reason why the book is titled Shut Up and Sit, and we get into the mindfulness space further into the book, is because mindfulness allows you to stop long enough to say, what am I thinking? And the link is,
am I thinking?
Right. Let's just say what it is become aware of what you're thinking. And so if we can even become aware of what we're thinking, then we begin to be more conscious, and we can say, okay, now what is that causing me to feel? What is that actually dictating me to do? And we're not talking about that in the mainstream. We have pockets of this, pockets of that, and you can rub some crystals and you can, breathe in this way and that way. And it's all cool stuff. Hey, don't get me wrong. Wherever your entry point is great. And I want to point this out too. I also don't want people to think I'm saying if you think about every single thought you have and you get into this really deep hole of positive psychology that you'll think your way into a great life. I'm not saying that either, because remember, there's spectrums here. I'm saying that there's a middle way that says, wake up. What am I thinking? And for you and for I, when we had that first podcast together, it was you were thinking, I want to do more. Ever Forward was a belief system inside of you that you wanted to be born into the world.
It was, I want to do more. And then from that, almost immediately was this realization that I actually can do more. I am capable of more than I ever thought. And I wouldn't have come to that realization if I didn't pause to actually think about what was I doing? What was I not doing? Like, why do I do anything? What do I want out of life?
And what's interesting too is, and I remember this too, I would have moments where I would say that out loud. Yeah, I really want to do more. I want to save the world. I want to help people, wake them up from their suffering, liberate, blah, 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 blah. I want the same for myself. But then when I would fall back asleep, and I say fall back asleep in that trance-like state where I would, fall prey to the social norms and the behaviors of people around me or my own belief systems.
Go back to your habits.
Go back to my habits. What would happen is it was like I had a foot on the gas pedal and a foot on the brake. And
amazing analogy.
And you know this. And so for me, I was in this place of, well, I want to find the solution. And so when I found what I would call the solution that helped me put all this together, I started using that with my clients. And that's when I thought, I want to actually put this together in a format that people can use and will be able to use. And so as I build the podcast and do the other videos I'm doing, hopefully people can take the content, and if they can't work one-on-one with me, they can still learn and listen and grow and evolve, because it's not just in one place. All the work that we did was, some of it was psychological, some of it was emotional, some of it was social, some of it was a belief system. I mean, there was a very integrative practice and
to
approach.
say it was multifaceted is the biggest understatement of the century.
And so you know, and now where we're moving, and again, if someone had said to us those 4 years ago, not only are you guys going to be sitting in Manhattan Beach with your, literally the draft copy of your book on the 400, maybe in first, I don't know what episode this is going to make.
We'll be past 400 for sure.
Maybe I'll be the 500th by the time we get it all together. Who knows? But my point is, what's really cool about this is, you know, not only, and I say cool, but I understand the suffering in the world, we're also in the most traumatic change in the history of the world as you and I know it. Sitting here in Manhattan Beach, I mean, we've put our little mask over there, but, you know, COVID is a real thing, and it's waking people up to start to think about life in a very different way. So the serendipitous timing of all of this work, too, to me, just reminds me that there's so much more at play.
Yeah.
And there are so many suffering people out there who do want to know, so what do I do? Where do I go? How do I figure out what life is about and how to tap back into the wisdom inside of myself and to deliberately create a life that does bring me joy? Because I don't know about you, Chase, but I mean, I was out last night to dinner, and every time I look around, my heart just, I mean, it aches for people because they're unconscious. They're asleep, they're in the trance, and they're playing out these old patterns and behaviors, and they're telling the story to themselves and to the world of lack, deprivation, victimization. And you and I, we did it too, and we could still be there.
Yeah. We were plugged into the matrix, so to speak.
Yeah. So as we kind of talk a little bit more today about this chapter, and it was deliberate to put your testimonial in this chapter because, you know, I just feel like for you, the thinking piece of it was just so profound and important. And I'm just curious, one of the things that that you said in the book, in the testimonial here, that I think is really important.
Oh, no, she's going to quote me. What did I say?
I am going to quote you. There's a 2-page. Look, did you take up a page and
I like to talk. I like to talk.
I love it. But you know, this is what I love, and this was literally it's I think it's page 50 in this version. I don't know the print version if it'll be 51 or 49, but anyway, this is what you said. You said, I've discovered that I have something so much bigger than myself inside of me. And by not sharing it with others, by not helping it manifest, by not working continuously for it, I'm doing so many people a disservice, including myself. That's my truth. At my company, which is Ever Forward, we believe to live a good life is to be continuously leaning into discomfort, to continuously be reflecting on limiting beliefs that might hold us back. So I'm curious about where you're at.
That sounds actually pretty profound. I mean, are you sure I said that?
You said it. So as it, and you know, a belief is, if you get the book, you're going to see this, but a belief is just a thought you keep thinking.
Right. Yeah.
And with mindfulness, what happens is we aren't even conscious. We're not even aware that we're even thinking it anymore. So what was that process like for you to go through this work in understanding the power of thoughts and how to interrupt it, be aware of it, and actually learn to choose new thoughts as you started to build your business and really become aware of the beliefs that might be holding you back from the success you wanted?
I think that last couple words is really it. It was success. At that point in my life, I'll say I was kind of just like, okay, I need to go to school. I need to go to more school. I need to go to certifications. I need to play the waiting game. I need to just play by the rules. I need to just do the things that I'm supposed to do that will eventually get me to this form of success that others have told me is success. Which is
a belief system right then and there too, right?
Exactly.
Like it's just layers.
And so it was really kind of when I actually paused, and you were really the example of, wow, like look at someone who's done all of these different things and like clearly has done so because they have their own definition of success. If they didn't, why would they be starting this business, selling that business, working in this? Like there's so much more out there. And so clearly, I mean, again, you were the example of, you had an idea of success, you had an idea of service, you had an idea of potential, and then just kind of worked backwards. Not to put words in your mouth, but that was what I interpreted. And that was kind of the pivot point for me of is this what I think is success? Is this successful? Is this where I want to keep going with my life? Really talking professionally. But then also at the same time, just where I was personally in life with, relationships and just my own identity and a lot of different things. I was like coming up against some friction and coming up against a wall and a lot of things of challenging that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, why does this feel like so much work? Why do I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels so much? It's because there was like this innate subconscious disagreement of what I was working towards.
Yeah.
And so when I really paused to really think about, I'll never forget, in that I think the original questions on that first episode of, you talked about the very origin for you of like dream, imagine, think about, visualize your perfect day.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about that before. And I imagined that for myself, and I was like, okay, I thought about something that is possible. And I know it's not just an idea, because I see you doing it. I see a lot of other people doing it. And instead of just thinking like they're different, they're better, they have this and that, and I don't kind of thing, I was like, well, what if I just thought it? What if I just thought, I wake up, I build my own schedule. What if I help people in A, B, C, and way? And then I just began to say, all right, well, if that's what success looks like for me, and that's what I visualize, like what came before that, what came before that, what came before that. And that ultimately led me to radically reviewing, auditing, rethinking everything in my life. And that's very overwhelming. At the beginning of your journey, this shit is heavy.
Like my awareness is acutely painful at times. I'm just going to be really honest. And I'm like, and I'm like, okay, whew, hold on.
Yeah.
Because you see, I remember a point in my journey, Chase, and I have a meditation teacher, Gina. She's in the book. I talk about her in the very beginning.
Shout out, Gina.
Oh, man, Gina's the best, right? Sitwithgina.com. She's phenomenal. But Gina was great because I had somebody to bounce that off of. And I said, I'm so far into my literally this work about the awakening of my own narrative. And she said, it will get easier. It will get better because just think this is a new habit. And it is. It's like all of a sudden someone kind of pulled the veil back and I woke up and I went, oh my God, there's a lot of trash in here.
These are all the moving parts that I have to decipher.
And so, and it's kind of the track that's underneath this, but I love what you were just saying is part of behavior and part of habit change is repetition. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So you can become aware of your thoughts, and then you can constantly for the rest of your life be aware of every single 1,000 thought. And if you want to know how many there are, actually in the beginning of chapter 1, there's over 50,000 thoughts that you have a day. So I don't know about you, but I got a little bit tired of being like,
a lot of thoughts.
Man, I literally went through a period where I knew my thoughts had become so clear and so slow and so controlled that I was aware of every single one. Now I'm grateful because I went so deep into this work that I could really pivot and begin to change. But like you said, it's a little bit alarming, but the beautiful thing is you have to wake up and there's value in contrast. And the trash there, what a lot of people don't realize is that was just some stuff, that was some narrative given to you. And here's the deal, the success that we saw other people having and even the success that you saw me have, what I realized was, you know why? Because I hold a belief system that I'm just really good at problem solving or manifesting or turning ideas into reality. So when business stuff comes to me, people are like, oh, you're phenomenal. I'm like, yeah, well, ask me about my romantic life. Like it's in the shitter because I'm reactive and I'm crazy and I text 10,000 times. And like I had to work through because I realized.
You mean you're not perfect in every way? Interesting.
No, God. Well, Jeff is here somewhere floating around. And if we catch him while he's here, he'll be like, no, he'll tell you about it.
We'll save that for the bloopers reel.
Yeah, he's seen me in real living color. And so what I realized was, none of us are perfect. The secret for success is not to become perfect. It's to become more aware of who am I? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? Yeah. And I want to be really clear. That's not a linear. You don't always start with thought. Sometimes your entry point is, what am I doing?
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so some people will think, and there's a lot of philosophy around cognition, cognitive therapy, and positive psychology. I am in no way by any means saying it starts with thought and you have to go think, feel, behave in order to do this.
Okay.
You might be the person that wakes up at the behaving, at the acting. and you might find your way back into how do I feel? Oh, well, then what am I thinking? So it's a very, it's cyclical in the sense that I don't want everybody to think, well, if I can't figure out what I'm thinking, the rest is
right. If I can't do step one of this process, then the rest
think
are
of it.
trash.
Think of it as a wheel, that it's a very holistic kind of experiential place to say, I feel like I'm just off today. Yeah. Oh, okay. Let that be the wake up. And you know what? Maybe it leads you to what you're thinking, and maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it's a part of awareness. So when I say it's not linear, there are some schools of thought out there that you can think your way in, as I mentioned earlier, into all your success. That's exhausting. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard. So sometimes you just feel. Right. And then that's why the next chapter, we're on the thinking chapter 2. Chapter 3 is feeling, and chapter 4 is actually talking about
keep
those
More.
behaviors. I'm telling you,
can't give away all the goodies here,
I can't give it all away. But there's a reason here that thoughts are so important, because they become our belief systems. Mm-hmm. And so if we want to have a different reality, we eventually have to go back to the core of our, well, what am I believing?
Yeah.
What do I believe in right now? Not only are we in a pandemic, but we're also, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's election day. So, I'm going to date
very interesting day.
The time of this talk. And so we're in a massive place. And so what I now see with this work that I help people with is, it's okay for us to believe different things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And our beliefs are not who we are. Mm-hmm. And so as we start this work and we wake up, the thoughts are just a great place to start to figure out, what are my beliefs? Because again, the belief is just a thought you keep thinking to the point you don't even think about it anymore, and it's dropped into that unconscious. Yeah. So when I now see two people, and I use this as a visual because I've seen this literally, hitting like headbutting on different thoughts. Like I'm holding this political belief, and you're holding this one. We're not using the word belief. We as human beings think, well, what I think is the reality, and if you don't think what I think, then we can't be able to coexist, because we all have to think the same way. Right. And so what I love about this work, and what I'm hopeful for the world, is the whole part of mindfulness and being able to pause says, I can be both and. I can be both here and present with Chase.
That's pretty powerful. Yeah.
In my thought, and allow Chase to be here in his thought, because our thoughts don't define us, nor do our belief systems. And that's a kind of like, you wake up and you're like, well, what do you mean? Thoughts are just mental units of energies. Beliefs are just tracks that you've laid in your biology and in your brain and in your whole being to actually show up in the world and manifest in a physical form. But the truth is, when we talk about everyone's the same, and we all deserve, and we all are enough, and loving kindness and compassion, all these cool things that a lot of people in the world are talking about, the truth is that's what makes us all the same. But I don't see anybody literally shutting up and sitting down long enough to find that part of themselves. Mm-hmm. What they bring, and I speak from experience, what I bring out into the world is what I'm thinking, what I'm believing, but there's even more to me than that.
Yeah. What you're saying there, I think, is probably one of the ways I would really kind of describe my life, my journey this year in 2020. Yet I had plans. I had so many plans. This was going to be my biggest year ever. I was like, I'm going here. I'm speaking at this thing. I'm doing that thing. I'm travel, event, all these things that I, at that time, had kind of lassoed to, that's what's going to make me successful. That's my definition of success. And that entire thing got yanked out for me, and I'm not alone.
For the whole world.
For the whole world. And then so what I had to do was just, first come to terms with it. Accept what I could do and couldn't do, and just navigate the waters through life, through business, through finding toilet paper at the grocery store. But the biggest thing for me was kind of what you're just talking about, the last part there of beliefs and thoughts. Thoughts becoming belief system, or is your belief system your thought, or do your thoughts dictate your belief system?
Yeah.
If I'm making sense there. And it was just really kind of this realization of I actually had belief systems, because look, this whole year put a magnifying lens on, I think, every aspect of everyone's life.
Yep.
And if you weren't asking questions about what was going on in your home, outside of your home, then really what were you doing? 2020. And so for me, it was, wow, like I not only feel some kind of way, not only think about this person, this thing, this idea, this approach to life, but So much so, I can actually see how it has molded and changed my belief system around it. And then I could take a step back, and this is where it all gets bogged down of like all the things. Like, wow, like it made me react in a way that I'm not really proud of, or it makes me kind of immediately show up physically, in a way that I would prefer or not prefer in certain situations or around certain people. And it really made me, again, reverse engineer all the way back to, if I can catch my thought about this person, place, or thing, then I can change how I show up in those situations. I can change and create a belief system of my own design.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because what I want to say about that is it's so important. So I said it's not linear, but it kind of sort of, it's both and, right? It's and that's the whole secret around mindfulness is I'm not on one end of the spectrum or the other. I'm able to be in the middle and hold two truths at one time. Okay,
Wow.
That's the goal of the work. So when I do the narrative coaching and the integrative development and do this work now with people, what I help people do, and this was the point that I got to, was what if I could just stand here and hold multiple truths at the same time? Because now I realize my beliefs, which are AKA my truths, do not define me or anyone else. And so the deeper work of doing this, and this is why I do say I think thought is so easy, just to shut up and go, what am I thinking?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that Chase is a real son of a bitch, and I'm just really sick of the way he treats me. Oh, so here's where the work comes in. Yeah, that's not a really kind thought. And here's the other thing. 100% of what we're thinking is not about the other person. It is what we're projecting.
That was the bitter pill to swallow at the end of it all. Yeah.
And so what I'm really saying
it's me. Yeah.
is I'm a real son of a bitch, and I'm unable to see the self-judgment and the self-hatred and the lack and the shame and all the emotions that I'm holding inside of me, and I'm now projecting them on to Chase. So even though we're only on chapter 2 in the book, and there's so much more in here, this whole chapter was geared towards helping clients, and there's lots of great tools in here. And you know me, I love chunking. I love segments of information. And so in this one chapter, and the end notes that are all throughout the book, they're all in the back. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of references. And so we've got a lot of schools of thoughts, a lot of philosophies, a lot of theories in each chapter. But in this one in particular, lots of great steps of how to stop, how to realize it when you're in cognitive distortion, some worksheets, some tools to really be able to teach people it's just that simple. Shut up, sit down. What am I thinking? And, when I kind of started delving a little bit into mindfulness, I never ever thought I would go down this. I mean, literally, the people that know me are like, wait a minute. You do what? And I'm like, I know, it's the craziest thing in the world because I'm a communicator for a living. I'm a presenter. I know how to fix people's problems. I talk incessantly. My ex-husband would be like, what's the title of her book?
No, can't be hurt.
I mean, I remember being out with my sister and friends, and I'm just sitting, and I'm just. My sister was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just practicing being aware. She's like, who talks like that? I was just enjoying.
LA people do, that's for sure.
Right. But I was just like looking around and enjoying because I've really learned how to train my mind to go, oh, I'm aware of the purple tree over here. I'm aware. So the tools that are in here are to help people, especially chapter 2, figure out just how to stop and think about, what am I thinking? It's just that simple, because that's the entry point, as you mentioned early. What am I thinking? Okay, if I'm thinking that, just to label it, is it positive? Is it negative? Is it kind? Is it hurtful? It's not about the other person. So as you go deeper into this work, what I love is I then started realizing if I'm pointing my finger at somebody and I'm telling them what I think about them, it's just a really low level conscious place of me actually not being able to hear what I think about me.
Yeah.
And so what if the world woke up and was able to shut up and sit down and go, everything I'm attacking other people for is how I'm working out my own stuff. So if I could sit down, and I would say this, and I know you'll decide when we're done if you want to use this footage or not, because I'm certainly not here to offend people. There is a time when we do need to speak out, and there is a time when suffering and when things are actually literally hurting and killing people. I'm not saying we all just kumbaya and sit here. What I'm saying though is, and if you look at a lot of the saints and the sages in history, there isn't the necessary need for the amount and magnitude, in my opinion, of violence that we use
I agree.
to get other people to think, because a lot of it, I would say, is used to get other people to think like I'm thinking. Where I'm at with where we're at politically, where we're at with the pandemic, where we're at with this work, and people waking up, and like you said, you had a plan. It all went to shit. Everybody's plan went to shit because the universe is waking us up and saying, but there's so much more. Because we're still operating from a place of ego.
Sure. Yeah.
Even with my book, I have to say this, and this was where I got to. I sat down with Gina, my meditation teacher, and she said, "Are you prepared if I asked you to right now? There's a burning fire. I asked you to take the sole copy. This is it. Nobody else has it. And would you drop it in a fire?" And Chase, I got to tell you, I sat there, and part of me was like, I don't know, would I? Because my own ego got in here, because I'm like, well, I don't know, Chase did a really cool podcast, and I could do a podcast, and I could do a video, and I could sell 1 million books. And what would I say if Oprah interviewed me and I was right here? And I went, I have to burn the book. And the reason I have to burn the book is this can't be about my ego. I don't want it to be about my ego, but I want it to be about everybody else's, because what I found through this work and what I've found with clients like yourself, the ego, we don't destroy it. We don't get rid of it. The thoughts that come from the ego, we learn to right size it. We learn to befriend it. It needs to be there. If we in this world right now could think about what we're thinking and become more aware of, is that really coming from my true self, the part that's the same as Chase and everyone else? Or is that coming from a belief system that somebody or someone gave to me that's not really who I am? The whole world would wake up in a different way. Yeah.
And speaking of that moment when we wake up, I'm curious, because I have this moment a lot when I work with somebody in a group or one-on-one, any kind of coaching, consulting manner. What was it like with you, with me? And or what's it like when anybody comes to you for this work? Because I know it's just like, when the person comes, it's a feeling. They're asking, not even, I wouldn't even say like they ask the right question, the magical question that tells me, okay, you're committed, you get it, we're on this path together. But it's just like, there's just something about that initial experience of the person being ready and eager and dedicated and curious and a little bit scared of, I'm ready for change.
Yeah.
I want to do this work. When with me, if you want to use me as an example, or just someone coming to you through this work and just everything you've done over the years, like, what is it like? What is that experience like? And I ask this question because I want someone to kind of be thinking of like, oh, like that's me. I'm kind of feeling that kind of way, or this conversation is getting me to kind of feel that kind of way.
So this answer to answer your question. So when I was coaching, it feels like forever ago, but it was only 4 years ago with the narrative coaching, where I was you come to me, you have a problem. I am wise. I am Yoda. I will solve your problems, and you will pay me.
Problem solve, I will. That's horrible, Yoda. I'm definitely not a Star Wars guy, you can tell, but.
And then what will happen is you'll pay me a lot of money, and you'll go, oh my God, Yedda's amazing. Yeah. I'm going to come back. I'm going to keep paying her. And I did. Chase, I made a lot of money, a lot of money in that space. And I kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more I went into my sitting, right, my shutting up and sitting practice, and the more that I would sit and go further and further. Did you hear that? Somebody's on fire. I hope it's
Manhattan
a good fire.
Beach, you're supposed to be quiet and chill. I'm not back in LA. Come on now.
So here's what was really interesting about this. I just kept doing more and more, and I'm like, something's just weird. I'm not really quite there yet. And so I started kind of integrating all the resources and the philosophies and all of what I've got in this book. And what I realized was, it's not about me. This is where the ego part really started to shift for me, Chase, was, wait a minute. I've been trying to get rid of mine, get rid of his, get rid of hers. And I thought, that's only going to go so far. What if I go all the way down into the point that I actually teach clients to tap into and find their own wisdom and their own resourcing? Because what I realized as I did this work was I had to develop the belief system that I am enough.
Yeah.
As human beings, we have to develop the belief system. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of belonging. I am enough. I mean, I'm talking abundance at a soul level.
And that was the core fundamental work that you and I started on,
and
limiting belief stuff around being enough. I mean, that was probably our first 2-3 months.
And so you were the perfect student, as many of my clients were, because and you remember my clients, I'm like, I hit them hard. I'm like, we're going to go fast, we're going to go furious, but I was going at these belief systems with all these weapons, and and that was part of it. And I still have clients I can work with like that if they really want to really hit that head on. But the piece that I really settled into was, what if I help my clients not just beat down the belief system and rewrite it with some I am lovable, I am worthy, I am Yedda, I am strong, I am powerful. Because what I realized was, Chase, once I possess the belief system, I don't have to talk about it anymore because I already am it.
Wow.
And that was the part where I started thinking about my clients, and I thought, so when they get it and I now see it, I don't even talk about it because I don't have to. You will know you are there, and I will know you're there. And it is some kind of Jedi crazy shit, because you're like, so it's and you know this. Think about the moments now. So now I fast forward, and if I were to answer that question for you now, you see clients going, oh, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And as you started to figure out, I'm enough. And you start, because if we went into this whole, it would be like Alice in Wonderland for all of us as human beings to lay out all of our belief systems and sort and sift and shift and which ones are good and which ones. So you could still work that way with a few. But what I realized was, if I can get to the sponsoring thought deeper than just the barrage of 50,000 thoughts, the sponsoring thought of I'm enough. That's what I found when I shut up and I sat down and I got really quiet, and I would just really go within and go, if that's already here, how do I bring that out into the world? And then how do I get my clients? So that's where I'm telling clients this whole mindfulness practice. And I'm not talking about there's 50,000 ways you can practice mindfulness. I'm just talking about, I don't care wherever you are right now, you can shut up and sit down, you can shut up and sit and walk, whatever. How often do you get quiet and just go within and be like, hey, dude, Chase, what's up, man?
Yeah.
How do you cultivate a relationship with yourself if all you're constantly doing is thinking, feeling, and behaving a certain way that's based on a pattern someone gave you a long time ago, and you're not you?
Yeah.
So now with clients, and I think about the work that you do now, you're still finding your way there. We all are. And I honestly think COVID's given us a really beautiful blessing in disguise, because part of Chase was still working on one identity label role that Chase plays. So now the question is, are you ready to go even deeper and go, what else is inside of me? What
100%.
Wisdom is here that I can bring to the world that brings benefit and value to others? And so now when I'm working with clients, I'm asking those types of questions. And then when they get the aha moment doesn't mean, oh, they've got it. The aha moment means, ooh, potential is here, and let's keep going. And so really it's fascinating. And we haven't done an actual formal session in a couple of years because you've been so busy with all of your success, but it's really
long
cool.
overdue. Seriously.
He's in the book, people, and he really did get he was very successful with it. Now though, and I have a whole, I have so many other books. I want to write a Shut Up and Sit about relationships. I want to write a Shut Up and Sit kind of on a spiritual path, and
so many
business.
Offshoots.
Many offshoots, and I'll tell you why. Because, man, when I found that magic inside of me, and now in a session, I ask questions. Clients know this about me now. They're like, well, so Yedda, what do you think I need to do about? And I'm like, I don't know. What's your sense about that?
What do you think?
And they look at me and they now know. And I say, because it's important for us to teach you to cultivate and mine for the wisdom that's inside of you, and not do what I think you should do. Because guess what I'm doing? I'm just giving you my belief system.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was one, I think, the most aha moments that I had and continue to have. It's in this self-help, personal development, optimization, whatever you want to call it, your journey. It is so much less finding the right person or thing or book or podcast to give you the answers than it is just finally coming into a space, whether that's with you, with your book, or just like shutting up and sitting down with yourself and realizing like, oh, it's right freaking here.
Yeah.
It's not, I need to go find this greatest, you know,
No.
blacksmith to learn a skill. You know, that's a very tangible thing that you go out and learn. But no, it's just making the space, making the awareness, making everything just right so that you can finally realize like, okay, I just need to go in a little bit more. Just keep going in.
Yeah. And where we've been in our world, and I think about the success, and, you know, both of us being entrepreneurs, I did have success, and I just naturally, like I said, had belief systems of, problem, solution, you know, idea, manifestation, like you said, reverse engineer, figure it all out. But I remember, like you said, I would read books, and you hear the Tony Robbins of the world, and walk across the hot coals, and you'll break yourself, you'll liberate yourself, and you'll be free. And none of it worked. I still came home. I still sat at home and was like, I went and paid the $1,000s. I did the seminar. I did what they told me to do. Because,
why am I not happy yet? Why am I not successful yet?
Because the thoughts that we think when we're woken up in those conferences, they're there. But they're not a real belief system, because then we get back home. And in this chapter I talk about, it's like the elephant with there's a story in India, you know how they train elephants is they put a rope from their baby, when they're babies, they put a rope around their ankle and they tie it to a stake.
So they always stay.
And so they have this radius around the circle. And so as the elephant gets older, all the trainer has to do is just tie the rope around the ankle and never connect it to the middle. And the elephant doesn't leave the radius of the circle because it doesn't believe it can.
How many of us have been doing that our entire
whole
lives?
Yeah. So I love what you said. And so this was really important to me. It's not even my stuff. It's just a guide. It's a representation, because what I wrote was a book that explained this is not the exact way, but there's a science, there's a psychology, there's lots of components that come in that you, and the way this is all written, you read this and take from it what works for you.
And that's why I love it. It's like you can do start to finish, or you can pick and pull. You can refer back. You can, there are visual aids for us people that like the interpretation.
Well, the business person in me was like, I realize I'm trying to like provide 50 solutions here, but I wanted the content. I wanted it synthesized. I wanted it visually appealing. I still wanted some sense of humor and some fun and some realness to it, because, oh my God, this work, people get so serious about personal growth and mindfulness, and, and we can make a whole nother episode on people who get addicted and attached to not being attached. And then, so here's the thing. And then is it
orthorexia?
Right.
Orthorexia is like, that obsession of just like always eating and being healthy. Like, I definitely have fallen victim to just keep getting better, keep getting better. But here's the deal. That goes back to where we started in the very, very beginning. That's a conscious effort, and only 5% of your brain and day is able to consciously make things happen. Stress kicks in. There's a whole biological response. You can read the stress chapter in the book of what happens, and then we go on autopilot, and all the old habits kick in because it's easier, and it's
right?
safe.
And it's safe, even if it's unhealthy. If it's a belief system that when I'm stressed, Mom gives me chocolate cake, I feel better. At 45, when you're stressed, guess what you're doing to feel better? You're eating chocolate
because
cake.
Your brain, your body is always going to go with what keeps me safe versus what keeps me healthy.
Yep. And so here's where we go. So now with clients, asking the question so I can help myself and the client figure out what is it that they believe. And if we can get underneath of it and then at least identify what is it that I believe, we can start to ask questions where we create curiosity and a little sense of playfulness about it. And then when we get into that space, you have everything that you need. It sounds so Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, but the truth is you do. You're already whole. You know what I love about cities like Manhattan is, I was walking yesterday when I got here, just right down the street. I took a picture of it. There is a massive banner literally across the road right here, and this huge banner hanging up on the building, and it says, "You are enough."
Wow. Yeah.
And I thought, I've been a lot of places in the world, and I've seen
California.
a lot of signs, and I'm like, hell yeah, I am enough. So now with clients, it's keeping redirecting back to the enoughness. Where is the enoughness? Where is the goodness? Where is the worthiness? Where is the love? Where is the compassion? If we can keep ourselves tethered to that, then what I do now with clients is it makes my life and my work so much more fun because I'm not providing you the solution. I have to tap into my enoughness, my love, my worth, And then as I do that, I can mirror that to you and help you find it in yourself. And then what happens is we already are it. And there's no work to be what you already are. The work in this book and the work I do with clients is to mine past all that shit and say, look, I'm not going to spend my life telling you to rewrite your belief about your finances and rewrite your belief about overeating. Let's just be aware of it. Let's shut up and sit down and go, every time I get stressed, I eat chocolate cake. Well, I wonder why that is. Oh, well then the more we shut up and sit and we become aware of the thought, whatever we place our attention to, it slows down. Yeah. And then the next time you get stressed out, you can go, oh, look at me wanting to eat that chocolate cake. I remember the last time Yedda and I were talking. Well, I'm picking the chocolate cake because I'm stressed. Oh, but what if I tried something different today? And maybe you do. What
if I tried to deal with my stress instead of just
whatever it was,
Band-Aid it.
And so now when a client starts to do the work, and when I see them kind of get what a lot of coaches call the aha moment, all I know is, now you're ready.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you're ready.
There's the answer.
It's not, oh, you figured it out. Because the truth is these patterns and these tapes are always going to be there. If I said to somebody, I'm never, ever going to send a mean text again when I'm in a state of heartbreak, I would actually be fooling myself. It is still there. I stay conscious. I stay awake. I stay aware. I stay available by shutting up and sitting down and going, I'm thinking I'm really upset right now. Okay. I now know enough about my thoughts, my feelings, and my behavior that the best thing to do is to give this to another human being and walk away, because I have the propensity to go back to that habit pretty quickly.
Sure. Oh, yeah. 100%.
And so this is where what I also believe in coaching, where we're headed as a world and a society. So now, since we've last worked together, I've finished a integrative development practitioner type of certification, which is kind of what's under the hood of narrative coaching. So integrative development is thoughts are only part of it. And the not knowing, and a lot of mindfulness, a lot of holistic kind of experiential somatic. It's all, it's like my whole life just came together in one Venn diagram with this certification. And
amazing example for sure.
But here's what's really cool. And so a client now for yourself, you would love, I'm sure, like you said, you would love a lot of the resources in here, and you can chunk them out, you can flip back and forth. And that's how my clients are using this as a guide. Okay, that's it. It's a guide. It's not an answer. It's not a solution. It is just simply, if you're curious and you find yourself here and you go back and you want some type of answer around these things, I've put some guides in there. And then, of course, in the back, there's some reference sections of how to go further. But where I'm at now, and why I said I want to write more books, is this integrative development says, and we use this great acronym, and it's by Dr. David Drake, who's the founder of narrative coaching. But this acronym is called I-BEAM. So I-BEAM. And so if you could imagine in your mind a Venn diagram, and that's for people listening and watching, 3 circles that kind of overlap, and then that little middle section where all 3 kind of come together. Blend together, right? Yeah. So the middle where all 3 blend together is a little I, and it stands for identity. And then the 3 big circles are B is behavior, E is environment, an arrow draws to the outside of the unknown, A is aspiration, and the other 3rd circle is M for mindset. Wow. And so now I'm working with clients to say your identity is actually made up of your behavior, your environment, your aspirations, and your mindset. A lot of the book, of this version of the book, is about mindset. Okay. A little bit about behaviors too, but there's a lot, I'm really heavy on mindset. And so what I love as I've evolved is I don't know everything. I don't have to know everything. And in integrative development, we're taught to learn to not only help the client find the wisdom, but our whole goal and value as a coach is for me to sit here in silence and stillness and to hold space for what we call the field, which is everything in and around us. My whole job now is to hold space for what is wanting to be born and come from the wisdom inside of Chase, inside of from my client. And it's not my job to make you do it, to tell you how to do it, but I have enough worth and value by my beingness to help you figure out your identity. And are we going to talk maybe about behavior today? Are we going to talk about environment, which is our physical space? Are we going to talk about mindset? Or we can talk about the unknown, which is an aspiration of where you want to go. And so coaching now is turning into much more of an integrative space. Sure. And what I love is it's kind of built on the foundation of what you and I both started our initial training in. Environment is physical, it's social, it's energetic, it's metaphysic. There's all these things
inside the home, outside of the home, I mean, at your job, in your car, your relationship. Yeah.
Think about your life, how it changed with the the environmental shifts that happen to you coming here.
And that's actually, it's funny you say that. That's one thing.
That impacts your thoughts too.
It's one thing that's, I get asked, I get made fun of a lot. Everyone's like, oh, got another new address, Chase. You're moving again. It's mostly, and this isn't a dig, but it's just, I think, a fair example of the only people that ever say that, the only people that ever make fun of or whatever about that are the people that only ever stay the same place.
Yep.
Physically, geographically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. When I tell certain people, or they get an updated address, or they see wherever I'm at in the world or the States or whatever, and it's like, oh, wow, great, good for you kind of thing, or like, what's new, what brought you there, versus, oh my God, I can't believe you moved again. Like, why are you never happy? Why can't you just stay in one spot?
Yeah.
And then I look at the people asking
projection people.
Yeah, exactly. It's because you think some kind of way about what I'm doing. And I can tell you, I'm here to tell you that every single time, and again, there's a little bit of the military coming out of me. I'm just used to, like, every 18 months, 2 years, just moving anyways. But every time I move and I put myself in a different place, whether I'm living there or I take a different drive to work or different drive here and there, just the environment forces me to think differently.
Yeah.
And
well, it's a pattern interruption too, right? Like it might be a new route to work,
consciously and subconsciously.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so important to have people. So that's why I say this isn't a linear process. Thoughts are just one piece of it, but you're being impacted all the time by the environment that you're in internally and externally. And your external world, FYI people, is a complete and total manifestation of your internal world. And so when it's time for things to shift, and that's like another, when a client's ready and they go, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Things are starting to shift because now you're moving into a different energy structure out into the field, and you're surrounding yourself with different people, places, and things that have impact. You know this, and it's in the book further on in, I can't remember if it's chapter 8 or 9, which one's habits. My son keeps going, Mom, you should know your own book. There's a whole section in here.
There's a lot in there.
So this whole chapter on habits is in here, but here's what's really cool. Habits are awesome. They're for efficiency. They help our lives run smoothly, whatever. But when you interrupt them and when you start to change the patterns and you begin to shift them, just everything that's happening in you, you're challenging yourself in a completely different way. And so when I see clients do that, and when they're starting to move into different places, like I said, not only do I get excited, but I realize they're ready for something different. They want something different. So when, so the whole point of the habit thing is, you get a new experience, and then as that becomes a repetition, as that begins to kind of lay some track in your brain, you build new ways to show up. So why is that important? Because if you can put somebody in an environment, social norms are the number one. It's the predictor of behavior change. It's the best way to change your behavior is hang out with people you want to be like. Yeah,
exactly.
Because you will. So you want to be more like Manhattan Beach. You want to be more like, Hollywood, LA. There's a lot of cool energy here, a lot of cool people. So, that's something I know for you. Once you got in that energy, didn't it make it so much easier?
Easier in many ways, challenging in a lot of others, but it was a conscious challenge because I knew if I have to navigate a different road, navigate different waters, navigate different, social environments, it's going to force change. And at that point in my journey, I knew when I introduced change, growth happened. And when I just thought about change differently, even that before the thing happened, I changed. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
at this point, I do. Yeah.
Right. So think about that. Everything in our lives is determined by a belief system. So if someone says, well, I don't want to take a new route to work. Okay. So then here's the question I would now ask as a coach. What's the belief that you hold about change? And here's where integrative development comes in. Where do you feel that in your body?
Oh, that's a whole other
show that we can go into.
Connection.
Because all of our thoughts, and it's in here, they actually create neuropeptides that actually go down into every single cell in your body, and they either create positive or negative, and I'm only using that for simplicity, not for labeling like they're good or bad. They create positive and negative chemical reactions in the body. So an emotion is the energy, the mental unit of energy of a thought that is in motion through your body.
And I don't know if you remember this, but I tell this story a lot when I talk about you and I think back to my beginning work and my journey here. when we first started working together, or even maybe even technically before, I shared, like how I got to where I was at that point where we were working together. And I was telling you, for those of you who don't know, my kind of transition out of the military was not my choice. I had a very severe string of injuries kind of happened to me acutely. And when I shared with you kind of my story of being a young man going into the military, losing my father, how I didn't deal with things of that loss and that trauma. And before I could even tell you where those injuries happened on my body, you're like, I bet it was boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
You nailed it. Like, I bet it happened. Was it like your low back, you kind of like your gait, your midsection? I was like, yeah. My hips blew out, tore a hamstring, L5 vertebrae, my entire, she's like, oh yeah, it's your root chakra.
Yeah.
Before I even got to telling it.
It's crazy. And that was way back, like 2006. Okay. So this isn't 4 years ago. What's so cool about that is that's when I owned the Center of Integrative Medicine. And now when I look back in the rearview mirror, I'm like, oh my God, I get it. It all makes sense because I had such a foundational knowledge of the physiology of the body and of course of health and well-being. And then I opened an integrative medicine practice. And then I got really into the Eastern philosophies around medicine and, Chinese and the Vedantics and Ayurvedic and, naturopathic and all these cool things. And then I remember standing at that threshold when I was doing the narrative coaching and I thought to myself, I don't want to be the wellness person anymore. What value does it have? It had all the foundation of now going into now when people say, what do you do? I say, well, actually, I'm an integrative development practitioner, and it's behavior and it's environment and it's aspiration and it's mindset. And we dial it all in. And sometimes we talk about all four in a session. Sometimes we talk about 1, 2, but they all touch each other. And it's the identity that's at this kind of the seat of the self. And now what I've realized is, and you know what? None of what I believe or think about myself or other people defines me or them or their worth. That's the shutting up and sitting down and going, I matter simply because I fucking exist. And what if,
amen, sister.
Right? Yeah. What if, and I don't know if your podcast is explicit or if you're going to, whatever.
I never edit out truth. I never edit out who you are.
You can edit out whatever.
Is raw as real.
But here's the deal. So then I started realizing, then what if we started coaching people? And we really went into the deepest core of really connecting with who people are. If I did the work to figure out my worth and my value, to connect with who I am, and I helped you to do that by doing it myself. And that's what in the book, in the beginning, I talk about in the introduction that a really well-known public speaker years ago that coached me, he said, a public speaker, a great one, knows how to take the message and the people to the mountaintop. And that's kind of how I start the book. And that's how I think about how I started my career and also the coaching question that you asked. And of course, where you were a few years ago, I was like, we're going to the mountaintop, baby. And I'm taking everybody with me. And when I got to the end of the book, Chase, I realized it's not about the mountaintop. And I actually close the book in the conclusion and I say, the work is to come back down from the mountaintop and to take your seat and to shut up and sit in the middle of all of it and to allow your healing to help to heal the world. And so that's this part where I really love the message of mindfulness in all of this it's not about a religion. It's not about did you breathe the right way? Did you take a 3-minute cold shower? Did you all these dials and gadgets that we get really addicted to? Did you just shut up and sit down and go within and be like, hey, how are you today? What's going on inside of you? What are you thinking? Oh, well, that's making you feel like this. Well, then you're going to do that. Do you want to do that? And so this conscious awakening that I believe that I have just begun and most of my clients have begun through this work, I now feel like the whole world is shifting in a way where we're all doing I think we're all shutting up and sitting. Literally, we were in lockdown in spring.
Well, what else have we been doing?
Right. So even if you didn't want to, and for those
maybe
of you
shut
listening,
up on Netflix, but
right. Oh, God, we need a whole episode on Tiger King. Did you watch Tiger King?
Unfortunately,
I'm embarrassed to admit it. Yeah. Well, that's a perfect example. We all need a little bit more of the ability to shut up and sit down. And so kind of just to bring us back to this chapter and the quote that you had in there, there's a ton of information in here, and I do love what I put in here. But does it mean that this is the beginning, the end? Absolutely not. Are there other contents and other things that people should use? My message all along has been there's a guide, there's a framework here, But if it doesn't feel right for you, then that means either A, it's not right for you,
Sure.
or maybe it's not right now.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Which has been more the case for me, I'll say personally.
Yeah. And when and I'll do some other things as you and I work together to kind of help build off on some of my stuff for the book. But I love chunking information, and so when I look at this chapter about thinking, the 4 components of being human, I review it, and then I actually offer people, well, now take some time and actually shut up and sit. Those are some exercises in the book, and do some work to go within and figure out what that means for you. And so as people go through these, the 5 basic human needs, then there's a section after to sit down and go, well, what does that mean about me? So what I've loved about doing this version of the work is it gives people the ability to actually shut up and sit while they go through the cognitive, while they go through understanding new information or learning more, so that they're really going, wow, well, what does that mean for me? Instead of, well, if I read this and do this and then sit this way and hold my breath and then, go and do these 3 things, magic will happen and all of a sudden I'll be a good person.
Yeah.
The truth is we already are. So now we go back to the tools in here for the thought processes are all about helping you to figure out, what am I thinking? And if I can figure out what I'm thinking, like you said, then I get to choose what's the next thought I'm going to have. Am I going to run off an old script, or am I going to choose a thought and go, wow, I'm really upset, and this person, I thought this person did this to me. Actually, what they did was they gave me a really great gift to wake up a belief system inside of me that might need a little bit more investigation.
I would love to keep going, but due to daylight savings time, I feel like we're getting really dark here.
We're starting to lose.
They're turning the lights on.
Hey, they did. They turned our party lights on.
We got some twinkly lights going here.
Yeah. So this, you know what, Chase, this is great, and you're right. I can talk about this forever.
This has just been literally one chapter of many.
Oh my God!
And in one
9
section of our journey and our work together as well.
Yeah, there's 9 in here, and like I said, placing you in the section about thinking, because you were such a phenomenal client and student that
thank you.
When we did get into it, like, you got it, but you were, everything was ready for you. You were ready. You were poised. And now I think about what you can do and where you can go with this reawakening. And like we said, the things that are happening for you in the world.
And I want to highlight right there, actually, just so the listener, the viewer doesn't get the wrong idea of when you say, I was ready, it's not like me personally or this vision of yourself that you have, like all these variables need to be right in order for me to kind of step into this work. Honestly, a lot. Everything was wrong in my life.
Yeah.
Work was fucking driving me crazy. My relationships were just going through the ringer. I was tormented by this, past trauma of losing my dad and finally coming to terms with that mental health aspect. And everything was really wrong for me at the moment. And it was because of that I knew that I had to think differently.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up, and that it is a great way to segue us into closing up this version of the talk, because I'll tell you what, that's why positive psychology and that's why just focusing on thought is a message I want to steer people away from, because the truth is, life is messy, okay? And contrast serves a purpose. Our ego serves a purpose. I mean, every aspect of us has value, and it's the contrast of going, this is not what I want, that helps you to go, then what's the belief I possess around it, and how do I gain a new one? So, and my personal story's in here too, and all of us have a story. And our story, what I found in this end of this whole book and the end of this work was, I really love my story now, and my wounds actually were my pathway to my wisdom. As were for you, your entire ever forward motto, everything that you do with your dad's message, that deep, deep suffering and pain and loss is a gift that is multiplying, for people all over the world. And even though it was your deepest wound, it has born inside of you a wisdom that, it's yours. It's yours.
It's a wild ride.
Yeah. And so, I want to close with one of these quotes. And so, me, not only am I the hit people over the head.
I'm surprised we haven't had a quote yet already, actually.
Or the synthesis of all the information that I love, or the worksheets, or but I do have some poetry and I do have some quotes in the book. And why is that? Because also what I've learned in the integrative practice is a lot of what we do in coaching, a lot of what we do in personal growth is left brain.
Oh, yeah.
And so poetry and a lot of the shutting up and sitting and the mindfulness activates the right brain.
We need to get into that creative
and
outlet.
We need to get into the creative outlet. And so I do have a quote at the end of chapter 2. And and for those of you listening, we'll have lots of little video segments about different tools and breakouts of chapter 1. But I do want to read this to you, and I want to read it to your listeners, because this really is what it's all about. I mean, we talked a lot about thinking today. We talked about our stories, but this is really what it's about. And this is a quote from Courtney Walsh, and she says, "You didn't come here to master unconditional love. That is where you came from and where you will return. You came here to learn personal love, messy love, crazy love, broken love, whole love. Live through the grace of stumbling. Demonstrate the beauty of messing up often. You didn't come here to be perfect. You already are. You came here to be gorgeously human, flawed, and fabulous, and then rise to remembering again." And I think this is the message of the book. We just rise to remembering again and again and again. We're not here to master anything. We already are all of this work. And so for me, I wanted to put something together that would help people wake up and remember what we already are, instead of, I've got to acquire a new skill, I've got to do a new thing, it's already here.
Yeah.
It's already here.
Yeah.
It's already here in everything we're experiencing in this gorgeous space.
Yeah.
And we are enough. Literally, it's across the fucking street, Chase.
God, send me a sign. Okay, it's over there.
I think, what else do you need? So man, what a blessing to be able to be here.
Likewise.
To see you in this element, to be in this forum, to just, I mean, it leaves me speechless, and that takes a lot for me. Maybe it doesn't. And I hold the belief that I think it could. So I really want to thank you and just really honor all of the enoughness and the worth and the value and all the hard work and the sacrifice, but all the belief that you hold inside of you that does help, I mean, the world learn how to go ever forward. And that is a belief system. When I think about Chase Chewning and I think about the core belief system that you have, it's the one that
you helped me. 4 years ago, I would have said that you helped me build.
No.
Now it's one that you helped me realize was already there.
Yeah. So ever forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Yedda.
Awesome.
You guys are definitely going to want, wow, the video is completely blacked out. It's getting dark here. So if
I have a white shirt on. You can see me.
You can see Yedda, not me. Shut up and sit. By the time that this is coming out, you definitely will want to get this book, this work, and there's going to be a lot more to come.
Maybe.
More
I don't
just
know.
Well, if I have anything to say about it, it will. Of course, have your work and your contact information, everything down in the show notes.
Yeah.
You've been a guest on the show, I think, 3 times now?
Yeah, this would be the third one.
Yeah. You actually did me the honor of, you interviewed me for my 100th episode.
Yeah.
And so, what a wild timeline. Now here we are, recording date, when my 400th went live.
So maybe you'll interview me on my 100th. I mean, who knows?
I'm here for it, yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
We're going to document this in time. We have no idea where either one of us is going and what's going to happen. And if we just take our enoughness and that belief out into the world, that's enough.
Yeah. I'll end it there. Yedda, thank you so much.
All right. Bye, guys.
Beautiful.
All right. If you're like me right now, I'm so jealous. I want to be back there in Manhattan Beach. That was such a great time with Chase. We had so much fun. We had so many laughs. I will tell you this, when we finished filming that episode, we did go out and have a glass of wine or two and had some great conversation and a lot of laughs. Chase is one of my favorite clients, one of my most favorite people on the planet. But the truth is, you guys are all my most favorite people on the planet. So whether I might actually know you or not, the truth is I do know you, because when I shut up and sit down and go silent and go within and learn how to do all the stuff that you just heard Chase and I talk about, I actually not only connect to myself through silence, I connect to the whole world in silence, because really what I believe is that the source of all that is, the intelligence of existence, speaks to all of us through silence and stillness. And so my hope for you as you're leaving today and we're wrapping up the show is that you have some moments where you can shut up and sit down. Maybe it's later today or at some point in your day, and you can start to take some of the words of wisdom from Chase. You can start to think about your own ever forward movement, your own shut up and sit journey to go within and figure out, who am I? What do I want? Where do I want to be? And let me tell you, your silence is what's going to take you there. So shut up, sit down. If you don't have a copy of our book and you're interested in following along a little bit more, or you want to know, what did Chase do? I want to know what that work is. You know the deal. Go to shutupandsit.com. We've got an amazing amount of resources. We've got this really cool, it's Tiffany blue if you guys hadn't noticed, which is my favorite color. We got this really cool 6x9 book. We have an incredible, if you're more of a workbook person, you kind of want to write, you want to feel, you want to get a good touch of it, you've got a great workbook. And we got my favorite little icon on the back. And this is what I tell people. If I could put Shut Up and Sit into an image, it's like Audrey Hepburn goes Zen. She figured out she didn't need somebody else to buy her the diamond looking through the window at breakfast at Tiffany's. She realized she could be the love of her life. And she said, I do, to Audrey, which in my opinion is, if Audrey could get her shit together and go Zen, we could all do that. So here's what I want you to do as you're leaving today. Realize that you can be the love of your own life when you shut up and sit down and go within. And my mantra, because of all of this work and all of these great clients like Chase and all these amazing movements and wisdom and ancient saints and sages that are helping us all to come to this moment right here, right now, here's where I'm at. I choose to say I do. And when I do, I say I do to you, Yedda. And what I want you all to do is I want you to choose to say I do to you. Until next time, it's been great chatting with you. We got some really cool stuff coming. We're going to be moving into the ladder of inference. And if you don't know what that is, you are in for a really big treat. It's not a ladder you climb to get to the top of your house. The ladder of inference is some really cool stuff. It's coming. So make sure you grab your book, you get on with us, you sit down, you shut up, you start to take some notes, and you start bringing your dreams to life. Have a great day.
May you know goodness. May you know peace. May you know content.